So the next panel is on regulating for the future, providing solutions for smart governance. So it promises to be very, very interesting. So Mr. Emmanuel, is over to you. Thank you very much. It's good to have you.
Hello, good morning. Or it's afternoon already. Good afternoon. We've had very, very serious conversations earlier. I'm here to lighten things up. I don't like when things are very serious. Though we pass the message, and I hope the Lagos State government already have the message. But we'll keep saying these things. I'm going to read a quote here from John Powell. David said this quote earlier, but I'm going to emphasize it now. He said, honest, open communication is the only street that leads us into the real world. Emphasis on honest, emphasis on open communication. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about in this next partner session. I want everybody in the panel session to be honest, to be open, and I'm just going to be the middleman. I would like questions, a lot of questions from the audience to the panelists, and we'll leave those trail of thoughts for the Lagos State government and also the federal government, NITSDA, NCC, to see these things and actually work on them. So without further ado, I'll call on members of the panelists. Okay, NITSDA was just stepped out. So we have Yomi Adeyipo, co-founder of Softcom. Is he in the house? Yomi Adeyipo, are you here? Oh, you're representing. Okay. Okay, please, a round of applause, please. Temilare Olajide, please, just have a seat. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for her. Also, we have here Oluwemimo Osanipin. Sorry, I'm very bad with Yoruba names, please. Forgive me. Oluwemimo Osanipin, thank you very much. And also we have Professor Ajayi Ayodele Ebenezer. Do you have him here? Thank you, sir. Please, a round of applause for him. Also, we have the co-founder and CEO at Pennee, Mejero Emmanuella. Is she here? Please, a round of applause for her. Please join us here, podium. And then we have the Chief of Staff at Youverify, Opeyemi. Hi. Please, a round of applause for her as they join us on stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the panel session. The topic is already in place. What we're going to do is just have open and honest conversations. They're going to be sharing with us their challenges, in tech, in the adoption of tech here in Nigeria, in Africa, and then we're going to talk about regulation. How has it affected your business so far in Nigeria? Let me start with the ladies, please, gentlemen. Let me start with the ladies. So, tell us, Simi. Okay. So tell us, how has the adoption of tech been for your company? And then you tell us about regulation. You've heard what that boss said. You've heard what the Lagos State government is saying about technology and about the regulation. Can you just tell us what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you for that. So I'm going to start with a positive note, and then I'll talk about some areas for improvement. So by profession, I'm actually a lawyer, and in a lot of work I've done, I've had to deal with the Corporate Affairs Commission. So I'm going to use them as an example as to how things can be better in a practical sense. So sometime before the pandemic, all the CAC processes were very analogous. Pretty much you had to turn in a piece of paper, wait for the paper to get to somebody's desk, have it processed. If they were going to queries, they were going to send you a query by paper, and that was going to work through all the processes, different people's desks. Now, during the pandemic, they said they didn't want to see anybody, obviously for safety reasons. So a lot of documents that needed to be filed, which always have statutory deadlines, stayed on people's desks, and people were not getting responses. CAC wasn't allowing people into their offices, and there was lots of I want to say, use the word pandemic in the CAC office. So you'd go there, and then nobody will respond to you. Sometimes you'd have to use somebody on the side to get into the office, only to get no response. So pretty much things were at a stalemate, and companies had to move forward because nobody in the tech space or in business world would understand that your excuses, nobody was
Okay,
attending to you.
sorry, Simi. I actually missed out on someone that is also supposed to be on the panel session. We have the CEO of CWG. You're here, sir? Please join us up on the podium. Thank you very much. Really sorry about that mix-up. Please join up on stage. Okay, you can go on, Simi. Sorry.
Okay, I'll just wait for the
While
gentleman
he joins
to join
us, you
us
can
on
just
stage.
go on.
Okay,
Mr. Adewale Adeyipo, thank you very much for joining us. All right, Simi.
Okay, so where was I? Pretty much things were not moving forward, but the law requires you to file things like your annual returns and to put in your change of directors or whatever it is by a statutory period. So what happened? Sometime last year, CAC decided to digitize the entire process. So no more waiting for someone in CAC to pass your document from this desk to the next desk. And the testimonies are abundant. For instance, now it takes somewhere between 2 to 4 days for you to register a company end to end. I was shocked when I tried it this year, and it actually worked because you know the Nigerian factor where they tell you one thing and then you go there and in reality it's obviously a sham. But that's an example of how recognizing that old archaic methods don't work, and it all came into place because CAC, or rather the Corporate Affairs Commission and the legislation, because at some point in time there was CAMA 2020, which is the law that governs Corporate Affairs Commission, realized that we don't have the human capacity and there's so much more to expand into if we put it into a digital method. So no more do you have to take a piece of paper. And also from a data privacy and security perspective, it's so much better when you do things digitally. For instance, if you go to CAC, you see a bunch of files everywhere. And there isn't number of human beings in the world to man every single piece of paper out there. So you pretty much are leaving it up to anybody who can have access to the CAC to pick up a piece of document. And those documents usually have personal information that needs to be protected from just anybody's access. So that's a blessing and a testimony from the digitization perspective. Now, this is just one example of how things can work. There are so many other ways, but we haven't gotten there. And we haven't gotten there because we don't even recognize the boundaries that can be charted if we decide, let's take a practical approach. Let's put it in a digital method. So now, let's think of other ways. Our company, Youverify, we assist with due diligence for mostly banks and other businesses, whereby we verify individuals and addresses to ensure that you are who you say you are, or you reside where you say you are, or you're affiliated with that address. Now, we know there's a lot of trust issues with people representing themselves everywhere. So we take that responsibility for you as a bank, for instance, because I imagine that there are so many people that are trying to onboard into one specific bank, for instance. And we do that, all of that, and we put it in a very easy to use medium. We haven't gotten to the point where we've reached the whole of Nigeria, but just the surface we've scratched in our little time of existence, we've been able to at least regain some trust in some industries where, you know, if you get a piece of, if you get somebody's ID and you verify it through our portal, at least you have some confidence that you're dealing with the person that's sitting in front of you. So that's just one way, and I won't take up everybody's time, so I'll pass on to the next lady sitting next to me.
All right, you can pass the mic up to her. Let's hear from you. You are into the business sector. Your firm is in business, and you work with both businesses and also the government agencies as well. Tell us, what kind of solutions do you envisage? What kind of solutions are you providing, and how do you think we can do things more? No, I mean you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So interestingly enough, I was going to come at the first question similarly to Simi, right? What we realized as a business after dealing with the government as a technology partner across a large scale, a bunch of large scale programs, what we realized was that there is really no way to manage the complexity of cities, like the social contract between the government and the people. There's no other way to manage it except through technology. What we found out and what we learned from delivering an Empower, for example, which is like I would say the largest social impact program that the government has undertaken. What we found out was that every bit of that experience, from recruitment to enabling the beneficiaries to prepare for their role, giving them the capacity development that they needed, it had to be powered by technology end to end. And when you mix in COVID-19 with that and citizens' expectations based on that, everybody wants convenience. Everybody wants a way to interact with their government. Everybody wants to be able to sign up for a PVC, a driver's license, CSE, do things in a seamless way. I think those are some of just a few things that we have learned. Now to the question of, sorry, I'm so sorry. Could you repeat that just to be sure I'm on the right track?
Let's look at the challenges you faced. Okay. So now you've told us the prospect. Tell us about the challenges you faced and how you're addressing these challenges or your solutions.
Okay. In terms of challenges, I would say, respectfully, I would maybe class them into 3 buckets. First is bureaucracy. Or maybe let me just even start from a foundational point, right? Orientation. When you interact with the average government official, you have a solution, you're trying to push it, you're trying to become a technology partner. What we find is that there's an initial resistance, there is a suspicion almost of technology maybe replacing jobs or, them not having the same level of authority if technology comes into play. So I would say that there's a fundamental issue around orientation and culture. The process that we have right now allows for a lack of transparency, and technology really stands to disrupt that. So I think fundamentally we just need to look inward, and I'm speaking to the government now, look inward, find the principles that we're trying to operate on. What are the values that we're trying to operate on? We want to deliver better services to the people. Technology is an enabler for that. It's not a threat, it's an enabler. So how we try to solve for that, solve for orientation, bureaucracy, and just some of the challenges that we've encountered in our process, is we really try to co-create. We at Softcom, that is, we don't come with, this is the solution, this is how it works. We sit down with the people that are actually going to use it. How is this going to work for you? We go through a discovery process, understand what exists in the parastatal MDA, state government office, that we're dealing with per time? What is the process that exists as is, and where do we want to take you to? And then we have like change management sessions. So it's not just technology for technology's sake. It's really it's a mutual creation of a solution. So how are you coming at us with your problems? How are we coming at understanding the context of what you're trying to achieve? And how are we designing a solution that takes into cognizance all of these things? That's how we solve.
Well, that's just great.
Thank you.
Emmanuella, I can't forget your name because it's similar to mine. You function, or you create services for micro and small businesses. Tell us, what's the adoption like, of tech in that space, and what more would you want the government to do to improve what you do?
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so I'll first start by saying that most of the times when people hear micro and small businesses, they will always think of these businesses on the streets, these businesses that like petty trading, right? And then they leave out the type of small businesses and type of micro businesses that are being run by young people using social media. So social commerce businesses, that's the type of small and micro business. And when it comes to technology, these people are already using technology to run their businesses. They're using technology to communicate. They're using technology in certain aspects of their finance already. It makes sense that they're using technology for their businesses as well. So when it comes to adoption, it's very easy for this type of businesses or this type of business owners to adopt technology. And then even moving to people on the streets, there are different there are different ways to use technology to penetrate wherever you want to get to, right? So it's not always a mobile app or a web app. There's USSD. There's a lot of ways to use technology to bridge the gap between companies, the government, and the people. And so with technology, I don't see a lot of resistance when it comes to adopting what makes people's lives easier, what makes it easier to run their business. There is no real resistance to that. Where the resistance is how much information they give and how protected that kind of information is. And what can become easier is a unified method of identification in terms of like our addressing system and our identity per a human that exists. So we don't have to have multiple types of identities, or you're not having those gaps where people are having multiple identity numbers for the same type of identity, and you're not having issues where people think that giving this type of identity means that they've compromised a lot. And then I would even say, contrary to popular opinion, or rather contrary to what sometimes people might think, is that I do like regulation when it comes to financial services because it protects people. So when the regulation, like the type of regulation that happens, say, let me take BVN for instance, being able to communicate what BVN means to an average person, because people have BVNs, but they don't necessarily understand that this is an identification number and this is the kind of access you give a person when you give them your BVN. Sometimes they overbloat what it means to what a BV number means, sorry, and sometimes they underrate what it means. So being like that general education that's coming from both the private sector and the government to saying that this is how far we have gone to protect you, I think is very important.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go on to Mr. Adewale right now. You are the CEO of Computer Warehouse Group, CWG, and you rose through the ranks. I believe you have first-hand experience with integrating technology into commercial enterprises. What obstacles do you foresee that could hinder a successful tech adoption in your field, in Nigeria and Africa at large? And then you can give us some of the solutions that you think we can harness.
All right, thank you so much. First, I must congratulate the organizers of this program. I think we need more sessions. We need more mechanisms and platforms like this to be able to propel the kind of growth we're anticipating. And that's the reason why we're here. But more importantly for me also will be the outcome of an engagement like this, the need for accurate documentation, compilation of the thought process that will come out from this engagement to be on the right table, the many agencies and parastatals for appropriation, because that is only when we can get the true benefit of people living their busy life and coming to join us here today. Before I answer your question, I must say if you're in this room today, then you are not particularly new to the new wave of digital technology innovation that we're experiencing in sub-Saharan Africa and by extension in Africa. I call it something quite remarkable. The emergence of the fintech organizations and the use of technology, the use of innovation in healthcare, e-commerce, agriculture, and so many other industries. It's a time that I consider very good for the continent of Africa. I mean, in recent times, beyond football and beyond the news of corruption, we are standing on global stage where we are being discussed and we are getting global attention on what exactly is happening when it comes to digital innovation in Africa. So I think it's something we must celebrate. And if you're talking about the adoption of this digital innovation in my line of business and the application of our job, the first thing I would say is we're leaving value on the table. And I call it the arrogance of the private sector or the arrogance of the tech industry. I call it the abnormality of the tech industry, where we see so much wealth in what we're doing, but we are not so much ready to get into active engagement with the major stakeholders that will make this happen. I think we're spending a lot of time curating the many things we are doing, which is incredible, but we're not spending enough time discussing with the people that will make that to happen. In every economy, regulation is always a major thing that either propel what you're doing or frustrate what you're doing. Part of my job, a large part of my job is working with promoters of banks to set up new entity and new banks. And I can say in the last 2 years, I've probably conveniently done more than 4 of that. If you understand the process it takes to set up a bank today in terms of the regulation and things you need to put in place, you would then understand the need why there need to be proper structure in place also for the tech innovation industry. If we see the wealth or the need for us to grow this industry, then we must also pay equal attention as we do to creativity. We must pay equal attention also to the regulation of the same. And I heard the second keynote speaker, and I agree with 99% of every other thing he said. But the aspect of then when he said something about you must come to us, maybe those are some of the few areas I feel a little bit indifferent. Because if you so much also believe that you're not doing me a favor, I would clearly see these as a way to actually increase the prosperity of this nation. Then it's not a case of me coming to you. It's a case of a careful deliberation between all stakeholders because there's something in for everyone. But precisely to our organization, I think I've said it in previous forums like this before, our own definition of innovation is not anything out of this world. So we are not in any way going to the moon for you to go bring out what is not missing. We're not doing that. We think we have a lot, so much of those challenges in sub-Saharan Africa and Africa today that we think technology can help to bridge that gap. So focus for us largely is how do we use technology? What's the application of technology in the everyday troubles and challenges that we see in the life of an average Nigerian today? What are those things that when we plug in technology, you could suddenly see a movement that you could clearly anticipate a better life as a result of the application of technology in that space. It hasn't been the best of of experience in terms of where we are right now. But I will also be very insincere if I say we've not made some remarkable milestone in the last 3 to 5 years. And I'll be glad to speak to that subsequently in the course of this conversation.
All right, thank you so much, sir. When I was sitting here and the NITA DG made that comment, somebody sighed behind me and I was smiling. Why? Because you agree that there's a gap, between the government and the tech startups. And then you said they have to come to me to tell me what you're doing. No, I believe that we have to meet halfway. That is how I see things. I don't know if you share the same belief, sir. You are in the automobile industry and you're into electric vehicles, right? You're the CEO of Jet Motors, correct? So you're into electric vehicles. And how would you say has it been, working with the government, your relationship with the government to adopt this in?
Thank you. Yes, let me first of all start from what you said that if gap exists, the two entities that are in two different locations have to meet midway. But if the regulator thinks everybody have to come to them, it will be difficult for them to regulate. What of those people that decide not to come? Are you going to take them out? So, if you don't want to go to them, you will find it difficult to acquire the knowledge of how they operate. And for you to be able to regulate properly, you need to regulate from the point of knowledge. Having said that, come back to my own industry. We came in with, we introduced electric vehicle into Nigerian market, especially the cargo van. And we knew this is the future of mobility. We knew as at that time that there are going to be challenges, and we knew we need to start confronting those challenges. We have to confront those challenges with technology. Let me first of all start from the first challenge we have to face. For you to operate in our industry, you have to be licensed, and the licensing process is done annually. So the process, it takes you some time. It can take you 4 months, 5 months before you finish that process of licensing. So by the time you finish it, you're almost gone through the 12-month period. So you start all over again. This is something the regulator can easily look at and say, we can make the process seamless. We can digitalize it. You can sit down in your office, apply, and be able to monitor the process, upload the necessary document, and monitor it from your own office. You don't need to go to Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade, Custom, and all these things to get your license. So it shouldn't be working that way. One other thing we noticed for EV to succeed in Nigeria, for example, you have energy. And then if you are regulating energy and the way it is now, we need energy to be not necessarily be on national grid. Everybody can start generating their own energy. And that's what we have been preaching to them. And I know they are responding, because now you can have your own inverter, you can have your own solar, but we want it to go a bit higher. We want government to start talking to investors in this area, because investors are not going to come if they are not so sure of the kind of regulation you have in place. They are going to protect their own investment. This is the area where regulators have to work on. You have to come up with a policy that will protect the investors. Nobody will want to invest in that kind of industry when they are not so sure of the kind of policy you have in place. For example, you have a policy today, another government coming, or even the same government, within the same cycle, government can change that policy. You are halfway, you have invested billions of naira, and they change that policy along the line. It makes it a bit difficult. But for all, what we have been trying to do is we try to engage government. We try to be closer to the council that regulates vehicle and automobile industry in Nigeria, which is NADDC. we try to explain ourselves to them. We want to know their position on everything we are doing. And from there, we are able to close the gap. And if there is anything we think they are not doing well, we try as much as possible to explain our own position. And sometimes they also come back and explain their own position to us. From there, we are able to close those gaps.
All right, thank you so much. We'll go now to you, Professor. I read something that a publication you and two other authors did about soil prediction using artificial intelligence. Yes, so it really thrilled me. It really thrilled me, knowing that you're a former advisor to the Ekiti state government as well. So can you tell us about this? You've heard our conversations, you listened to the NITDA DG speak about regulation, you listened to the Lagos state government tell us about their vision for Lagos state. What do you think about that?
Well, thank you very much. And once again, let me thank the organizer of this. I think one thing we are living too late is that this conversation started a bit late for many operators in the system. I mean, when we talk, you do all of this, Nigeria is an environment where there's so much creation happening. But you leave the higher education institutions out of the whole discussion. They get to understand what it means much late. And my experience came from serving in government. I think it's really regulated my thinking about what kind of things we deliver to the society and what it means. I found out our system does not really allow most of the graduates to think, and we stiffen the process of innovation within the system. So, and we apply, for instance, we try to apply in drug distribution. While I was serving in the Ekiti state, we were looking at the kind of finance the state has, and we were looking at making drug readily accessible to everybody within that state. So we created what we call the Blue Roof Hospital, about 171 of them, and we wanted to have an integrated system that monitors drug delivery, so that we just have maybe 3 central stores, and we can do inventory management right from. It was such a challenge, and I think my sister already mentioned it. There was first the problem of culture. Almost everybody doesn't believe, and everybody, you are coming to take my authority away. Now computer will be doing what I'm literally supposed to be doing. And again, because the underlying corruption issue also, everything become more transparent. But in retrospect, I found out the challenge is that many people who are participating in that sector didn't know so much about it beforehand. And so they are now afraid that this. And I look at the environment where we are competing with. These things has been part of the process. Innovation, thinking is part of the process. And so when I returned back to the university, I made it a first challenge to me. First, as a person, I don't give student project topic again. If you have studied this course for 4 years, for instance, and you don't have something you want to contribute, then it's not worth studying it. And I found out over the last 10 years I've done it, I have produced almost 20 inventions, just allowing the guys to think on their own. Not because I only guide them. Some of the time I don't even know what they are going to do. So like the soil mapping using artificial intelligence, for instance. When the young man came to me, I challenged all of them. One challenge about collecting soil data, for instance, is if you want to take soil sample to just estimate fertility of a soil, you can spend the next 3 months just collecting sample over maybe 10,000 hectares. 10,000 hectares is so big to a Nigerian person, but I've worked in Brazil on 1.1 million hectares of land where they plant just eucalyptus. So I imagine if we now want to do 20,000 hectares, what is going to happen? So I told the young men, please, all of you, think, can we do something that we can use existing data to do some prediction? And this young man took it up. I mean, he was bringing the thing I was reading. I was just encouraging him and also reading along. Because the reality is that all of us have to learn. It's something new. So I was learning as a young man was learning. And today you saw the work is being published in an A1 journal of showing that what this young man, a graduating student has done is very real. So the reality is that we left this conversation for too long. And very unfortunately in Nigeria, we're having so many things happening. But up to today, all of the creation happening, most of them are not talking back to the universities. I saw the Lagos State government official talk. I'm so appreciative because I think Lagos is a model for many of us in Nigeria to copy. But I think they will also do stronger if they take this thing back, even from their secondary school. Can we begin to have those creativity hub, even from secondary school, so that we are talking about it together, and as we go forward, regulation becomes a normal thing that we can all see together. Thank you.
Okay, I think one thing that most of us will agree with today is that when the questions were thrown at the government officials here, every one of us were here, when they responded, it was more like they were defending themselves. You were defending themselves than actually saying, oh, okay, I take that. I think we should work in this area. I didn't see anything like that. So it goes to the question, how can we provide solution, for smart governance? What do you think is the solution we can provide right now? We've talked about the problems. We've talked about the places that affect us in our own different industry, our own different field. What are the solutions we can explore at this very moment? Because time is no longer in our hands. We need to get these things right now, or in the next 2, 3, 4 years is going to be a major challenge. Like I said, we should have done this earlier. But we're here right now. So what are the solutions? So I'll start from you, Professor, then we'll go down.
Okay, I think we started this also. I think I gave some instance. Yes. Number one, let this innovation process flow through so that we don't leave the discussion until much later. And we need a lot of cultural change. In fact, the real challenge between the tech industry and the government is this issue of culture. We need to invest a lot of time, a lot of resources into getting people reoriented about development. Once we can do that, and we must be conscious about it. It's not just something that happened. We must be conscious that we want to get this done and look at how do you communicate with each sphere of the government. I mean, the same language. I used to remember one of my professors, he said 2 times 2 is not always equal to 4, because his answer is it depends. So depending on who you are talking to, you must find a language that best address what their fear is and speak it to them in such a way that they understand it. And the second thing, my sister equally mentioned it, technology is not just about coming to tell you you are stupid. You didn't know what you are doing. But we're saying we can work together and do something better that will leave the future better than we met it.
All right, Emmanuel, let's go for you.
Okay, so one of the things that I think would, because a lot of people have mentioned the gap between the government and the tech sector, and I think there's something that will bridge that is the government having operators, right? Existing operators or operators like mature operators in the tech ecosystem, working with them, working in their agencies. I think that the kind of regulation, the direction of the regulation, and the different levels or severity of the regulations will become better just by having operators in their agencies. Because what that means is that these people understand what is going on in the tech space, the direction that it's going to, and they can better translate that when, rather the regulations can be better translated when they are involved in the process. It's not always easy to say, oh, the government and the people in the tech sector should always be coming together and always having those discussions. Those are important, but having operators as part of that process of regulation, I believe that is going to be like a game changer when it comes to the regulatory landscape.
Okay, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that forums like this is a good start where we have the opportunity to engage with regulators despite what we despite what we hear them or how they take that feedback. At least there is a forum to engage, there's a forum to have these discussions. In the long term, there's a real opportunity to, I would say, like Emmanuella said, honestly, plant technocrats in um, in government spaces, because it's very, very important to have that shared understanding of this is innovation, this is something that we can catch on to. It doesn't need to take 4 months to regulate the electric vehicle industry. It doesn't need to take that long. How can we innovate? How can we learn from best practices? And also looking outside Nigeria. When we look at, maybe other countries in Africa that are doing these things, when we look at Kenya, Rwanda, how do we learn from them? Of course, we understand that our problems are peculiar, we have to take those things into consideration. But what can we learn and how can we apply them into our own policy frameworks? I think that would help.
Okay, talking about other countries, I'm very particular and very concerned about brain drain in Nigeria. You see, because most of the people, even though we know that to an extent a lot of persons can stretch the law and make things work for them here in Nigeria and benefit more, there's still that area, there's still that part whereby a lot of persons want to go outside the country and try it more. I think I heard an example from the DG also, want to go outside the country and do things from there and just let the Nigeria be on its own. And that is my great concern. Simi, you tell us, though the same question, the solutions, we're looking at solutions right now, but from the regulatory angle, you've heard everything that has been said here. You've been here since the very beginning of the program. Are there particular policies, are there particular regulations that concern you, that makes you worried?
I wish the regulators who were here were still here, because something that, as a lawyer, I always question is the fact that whenever we have new regulations and policies, they tend to look like borrowed policies from different jurisdictions. And I say this because you look at, let's use the NITA for instance, it reads almost like a copy and paste of the EU GDPR, but it doesn't take into context the local circumstances, the climate. Are these things plausible in Nigeria? Have we reached the stage where we should be talking about these specific things? It seems very high functioning, but then typically you find that in the process of trying to enact a law, all of that, ideally you should look at how it's been done elsewhere. But you have to adapt it to the local climate. You can't just say there's A, B, C, D, do A, B, C, D, or else you will be erring. No. A, does it work in Nigeria? Does it even work in, let's use Lagos as a model state? Is it obtainable? When you ask those questions, you realize that, fine, we need a regulation because obviously it gives for security of whoever is an operator or a player in that industry. But what does this specific industry need? And that's something that tends to be lacking, because what we're trying to do is just to check a box and say, yes, we have a regulation for this particular industry. Now, go out and do whatever you think is relevant to achieve this objective. But really, is this even attainable? That's my main fear as a lawyer and someone who actually is in the operations aspect of a business. Is this where and I think the gentleman who spoke about the electric car said something about the fact that it takes so long, but then when you do it takes so long, when you eventually get the final products, you look at it and you say, what is this in front of me? How is this going to help my business? And I don't know who asked the question earlier, but I think I get a sense of why the person was asking or saying the thing about Lagos State frustrating businesses. It looks like a frustration because from the ground level, it already seems like you're set up to fail because you can't even meet the requirements of the standard, which is the regulation. So for me, where we need to start from, ask ourselves, is this practical for the circumstance that we find ourselves, for Nigeria of 2022, not Nigeria of 2030, when things get in place, or we hope that they get in place, the Nigeria of now. So that's just my own main concern.
Okay, so Mr. Adewale, what is your thoughts on this? You've heard what she said. What do you make of that?
First, not in defense of the regulators, but probably because I'm privileged to know some few things as a result of the few works that I do for them. And I can say there's been a lot of improvement in the last 5 years. If you go to NCC, for example, I'm not sure if any of their reps are here. I'm privileged over the years to have some few sessions with the board of NCC in the last 3 years. And if you get into the details of some of the initiatives and policies that have been formulated in these quarters, you tend to understand then why are we not seeing the immediate benefits in the everyday life of everyone in here today. But having said that, I must comment a little bit about what Prof said initially. My question, Prof, by extension of what you said, will have been after the publication in the big magazine, then what next? That's what I will have said, because I think there's need for more active or more engaging or deliberate apparatus or mechanism for some level of active collaboration between the private and the public sector, which by extension would be the regulators. And that's why I said, and I must be fair to say this, to say there's also a little bit of arrogance coming in from the private sector, which by extension the tech ecosystem, where we believe by default that some things happen to be our right and something should come to us because we believe so much in the ingenious creativity and the tenacity of the work we've put in place to produce that thing that has given us that global presence. And suddenly we believe we deserve the right to be served, and somebody should put the meal on our table for us to eat. So I think also that needs to be taken away. There must be a very active, there's a place for lobbying in any active economy. Institutions build any engaging and prosperous economy. So there's a place where the tech industry almost must come to that realization and get to that place of lobbying in order to see and bring some things to life. And also, madam, I also completely agree on the issue of there can be a plug and play. But I personally don't see a problem with copying models from different parts of the world. I don't see a problem with that. It happens everywhere in the world. The trouble then will be, if I've gone to copy, then I must be able to talk to the relevant stakeholders to say what are the plus and minuses before we put this into place. And we can now see how that can actually work in our environment. Having said that, my last comment on this also will be the place of understanding what I call the drivers of every economy. In every advanced society that you have, there are drivers of every society. There are drivers of every organization. We all work or own different businesses today. You clearly understand the drivers and the fundamentals of your business. In Nigeria today as a country, there are drivers of this country. By the time you take trade, you take diaspora transfer, capital inflow, policy happen to be one of the very strategic parts of drivers of this economy. Under policies where you have the fiscal policies and the monetary policy, which by extension goes to the financial markets, where you have the equity market and the fixed income markets, that largely drive our exchange rates today, largely drive our interest rate, largely drives inflation. If you want to know about policy, then talk to folks in the US right now on the impact of Fed's increasing rates, then you understand the impact of policy in nation building. Where am I going with this? My point is regulation then becomes something very critical that will determine whether we move forward or we don't move forward in this whole conversation. So it must be deliberate. And I think the private sector also must provide their fair share into this conversation. My only conversation to governments, after giving that good remark about what they are doing, will be, if I suddenly tell them that I found gold at the back of my house, will they wait for me to come to them, or they will come to my house to say, how big is this gold that you just found at the back of your house? What we are saying in the tech industry, it's we just found gold. That's what we're saying, that we just found this oil well. That's what we're saying. So if we found the oil well, we can't come to you because it's an oil well. So we must meet and discuss to say, how do we provide the level of the digital prosperity that I think is necessary for the continent of Africa, for us to propel the kind of growth that we're looking at. It takes a lot of job, I can assure you of that, but just like every good thing, it's not going to be something we wake up and tomorrow morning we're suddenly there. We must contribute our fair share, and government also must do what is important. Institutions build nation. Institutions are necessary for nation building and for prosperity of any civilized environment. And that's the same thing that must happen in this place.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing I will say before we pass the mic and then we'll take the questions is this. My engagement with some of the persons in the tech sector, their opinion is this, and I'll say it the way they said it. They said, the government, the oil is done. Let me even use pidgin English. Sorry, guys. Let me use pidgin. Oil don't finish. Now, na tech night day. The government is just looking for a way. They've heard the tech guys now have been able to get seed funding of 600 and something million dollars, and they want part of that money. They want to be involved. And that is why these engagements are coming, and they're trying to feel like, oh, we're here for you, we want to talk to you, we want to see how we can regulate the sector. That is the whole mindset down there. You see, and they're coming here to say that we want you to come to us. It's a whole different thing entirely.
So if you permit me just for 30 seconds, and it's important I mention this because of the example that you gave. And I still call it the arrogance of the tech industry, because no matter the brilliancy of your solution, it must be riding on an existing platform for you to thrive. And I've been there before, where we spent several years, got some huge investment on a particular initiative, signed like 3-4 banks. And someday CBN woke up and said, this is the new direction. Yet if we didn't have the bandwidth to actually weather that storm, I probably won't be here today. I probably might be connecting from my McDonald's job somewhere in the US and connecting to you. My point in this is that you must understand what we call the DNA of every society. And it differs in every country. In Nigeria today, the private sector, just like we have a mix of it in the US, where we have the Silicon Valley and the government driving technology. In Nigeria today, the private sector drives technology and regulators are playing the catch-up game. It's not going to change, and you're going to live in this place and work in this place. So, because of the attention that we think we've gotten on the global stage, it has gotten us also to that place of arrogance where we think, like I said, we have to be served. In Singapore, for example, it's not the same. Government is driving tech, and you see the private sector following. Understanding the DNA is the same way you understand the DNA of your organization. The same way you understand the DNA of your house. Because you clearly understand the kind of wife you married or the kids that you have, and you navigate the politics in the home. You have to navigate the politics also that we have in Nigeria today, because the DNA is we lead and the regulators are playing a catch-up game. It's not going to change. So if we come here also and encourage so much of this arrogance, I think we're making the journey longer and probably more frustrating. But the more consciousness that we build into this space, where we allow technocrats and techpreneurs to understand the need for that active collaboration, I can tell you in 24 months when we're back to this space, we have a better story to tell. And I apologize for taking your time.
Sorry, sir.
No,
So
no
just,
problem.
just tell us what solution, what are those things you hope to see? You know, when the government is saying regulation, we've come to a conclusion right now that the regulation is good, okay? But it is the right regulation. So what are those things you hope to see?
Okay. Let me start by saying both parties, that is the government, the regulators, and the regulated, must understand two things. They must be able to answer two questions. Why regulation? And how do I regulate? So why regulation? For both parties, if the government or the regulator understand why they need to regulate, they will know the actions to take. They will know how to go about it. If they don't know, they will ask questions. And the regulated also, when they could answer that question, why regulation? That bit of arrogancy, they will discard it and then move toward the regulator. Because if both parties couldn't answer that question properly, there's going to be these issues that both of them will try to hold their own side. The regulator will hold their own side. Let them do. If I don't understand what they are doing, I will just kill it. And that's how some of the operators see the regulator, that immediately they don't understand what I'm doing. The best thing for them is kill it. So they will come to us. So again, the regulators, when they understand that, why are we doing this? You are doing this to protect the system, to protect the society, to protect individual, to protect even the regulated. So if you know this, then you need to go ahead to ask questions. Then how will I do it? In knowing how to do it, you need to engage everyone. You need to engage the operators. You need to, you mentioned something like having the DNA of every society. In this place, how do I do it? It's different from the way US is doing theirs. It's different from the way Rwanda is doing theirs. How will I go about it? In knowing how to go about it, you need to engage everyone. You need to speak to the stakeholders. And even the regulated also cannot say, I'm going to sit down and hold my own position. You need to go to them and speak to them. Because you are looking for solution. Both of us are looking for solution. Everybody wants to grow the market. Everybody wants to grow the economy. Everybody wants the tech space to improve. So if you want that, you need to sit down together and explain the how. We need to expand our knowledge. And it is knowing the how that we are going to expand our knowledge. Because if I know that for me to regulate this, I don't have the basic knowledge of doing that. And for me to acquire that knowledge, if I need to employ some of the experts, I need that. In the industry where I operate, the Director General of NADDC is an expert. So when you are talking, you already understand even before you say it. You already understand the problem we are facing from other ministries. So we can easily call and say, Oga, come, your people. You'll be able to work because you understand what it takes. You understand what times mean. You understand how the process works. So that's why I think the best way, let's answer those questions. Why do we regulate? And when you know why the regulators have to regulate you, the regulated, you will be open to them. You'll be able to be sincere with them. You'll be transparent with them. And when you know their inadequacies, you'll be ready to provide solutions and cover up by providing necessary knowledge or necessary aids that you need to provide to the regulators. Because sincerely speaking, a lot of regulators don't understand what we are saying. And if they don't understand, if you think they don't understand, and you are going to leave them that way, they are going to jeopardize our own investment. They are going to jeopardize our own future. That's why we need to work
Just 30
with
seconds,
them.
sir.
Thank you.
30 seconds.
So one point, I completely agree with what you're saying. And I think one area where I support so much the idea of lobbying, the problem we are even having is over-regulation. Almost everybody comes out with new rule because the city is an evolving industry. Everybody wants to be relevant to that industry. And I think we need more lobbying around that area to let's get together to talk. If we talk, what you are saying, this other organization is saying, this other organization is saying, and everybody is saying different things. So I think we need more of this conversation talking so that over-regulation is even the issue. Now, Now everybody wants to be in the tech space. We are relevant. Everybody is relevant. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, sirs. Before we go, I would like to take some few questions, maybe 2, 3 questions. Okay, I can see a hand there. Let's get your opinions on this. I can see another hand here. Okay, so let's start with the man with the cap, please.
Thank you.
Okay, you just introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Favor Chukwedo. I'm the founder of DigiLens, and I also help with. Can you turn this down a bit? My name is Favor. I'm the founder of DigiLens. My question is to the CEO of CWG. Your feedback was quite interesting, but I was sort of taken aback when you said there's a bit of arrogance by members. Can we take this down? You said there was a bit of arrogance by members of. I think the issue here is about the government or policymakers trying to play catch up to the existing reality. I was also surprised when you said you would have gone to work with McDonald's. It felt like you had an alternative. What about a young person that is trying to innovate around education that doesn't have an alternative but is being faced by a policy that is going to stop him from innovating? Take, for example, my startup, right, provides quality learning content to and this is not the enemies of marketing here, provides quality content to out-of-school students that don't have smartphones or internet devices. But a big challenge for us now is from the likes of the MNOs, for example, across the cost of SMS and USSD. I think now it's about 7 naira and a few kobo for a session. DigiLens will not be where we are if we didn't have support. But there is an existing policy that the government can actually put in place that talks about startups that are providing, social impact services can kind of enjoy maybe 0-rated airtimes for products built on SMS and USSD. So I really want to maybe still get your feedback. Do you really think it's still the arrogance by members of the tech ecosystem or the government trying to play catch up? Or do you think the arrogance is maybe because they don't have alternatives? They don't maybe have a McDonald's where they can run back to? Yeah?
All right. Is there any, the other man there? So we'll just take the questions, then we'll do the answers and we'll go.
Do they respond to questions before?
Okay, let's get this question so that we can do everything at once.
Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Ajayi Emmanuella. And first of all, I'm concerned about the fact that Nigeria is regarded, when we have shows like this, we are normally regarded as talkatives. We don't, work towards what we discuss. My concern is, the plans of the organizers of this program, how to follow up every bit of discussion we have here. And, I actually want to see maybe towards this time next year, or there's a particular time we're going to have another program. We have, something to write about this particular gathering. And the second concern I'm having is about this regulators thing. Most of the regulatory agency that we have, they have been given a stipulated, how do I call it, a target at times. They give them a particular target. So they actually level up on any startup company or whatever that they see. And they try to use up the opportunity to meet up with the particular targets they have. How do we think we can, address this issue? Do you get my question, please?
Okay, I think we got that. Sir, please, start from the first question so that... Just give us the time. We're nearly out of time. But go on, sir, Mr. Adewale.
Okay, first, thank you for that question. And I'll make a little bit of clarification to my comment about the arrogance of the tech industry. First, I must say I'm in the same word. So when I say the arrogance of the tech industry, I'm also referring to myself. And the reason why I have to emphasize on that is largely because I have so many sweet stories I could tell you today to encourage you and tell you why the problem is not us and the problem is the other party. But the question will be, by the time we're here next year, it's possible that nothing has changed, because what we're doing is that gratification of, and that self-endorsement in terms of nothing is wrong with us. The picture I'm trying to paint is the need for us to also make a shift before we can have any meaningful progress. And I've been there. When I say I've been there, is I've been in situations where I think I deserve more. I was in a similar engagement like this in my many engagements, and in a room of over 100 people, which is outside this country, a professor was trying to make illustration about dynamic system thinking and was trying to use the issue of pandemic. That was before the COVID situation. And of course, he went to Africa, then he started talking about Ebola. And in the course of the conversation, immediately he mentioned that, do we have anyone from Liberia in here? And there was no one. But my lousy professor at the back that I felt I was trying to make some contact with for some conversation after the program, shouted at the back of the hall and said, Adewale, from Nigeria. And I had to stand before the crowd of over 200 people to explain what exactly is Ebola and use the application of the dynamic system thinking to demonstrate Ebola. Before that time, we've had people from Sweden come to illustrate how homeless people and poverty level, it's no longer being measured in percentage in Sweden, Austria, and some other European countries, but it's being measured in numbers. So you can imagine somebody leaving that stage, and there comes a me in our usual arrogant Nigeria way, where we are all well-dressed, you know, the Nigerian thing, and the only thing I could describe in that space is talking about Ebola. My point is, when I had the next opportunity for that in a similar environment, and this time around I was meant to come and talk about the new wave of digital prosperity in Africa, this time around in a bigger audience. Trust me, I didn't waste that opportunity. They had to remind me that I only have 10 minutes. My point is, returning to Nigeria, that's an endorsement for me, because on a global stage, somebody just acknowledged the fact that we're doing something great. My expectation at that point is even my government will not acknowledge what we are doing. So I could sit very calmly in my office waiting for the right time for government to come to me to do this. My point in this is, let's make that move also. Let there be some active collaboration. Let there be some active engagement. Let's put some governance and structure in place within the tech industry where we have bodies that can even speak on our behalf. If I go for an agenda today, very likely there are people in this room that will say because it doesn't favor their own industry or business, then that's not the position of the tech industry. Some level of structure needs to come into this space. A last comment also on this, my good friend, will be, you know, it's easy when you see it from your side also. Because of the kind of job that I do, I consult for banks. Some certain policies are there to protect you, even while you're doing that innovation. If I tell you the volume of bank fraud that we have today, either enterprise employee fraud or cyber attacks, that you don't see on the pages of newspaper, you will not remain on your seat. You will not remain on your seat if I tell you the volume that we're looking at. And these are things that some of these financial institutions don't even have an answer to. So when you see regulators respond sometimes, you are seeing it from the point of why would this be in place to frustrate what we are doing. The other side of what you're seeing is a 20 billion naira has just left 3 commercial banks in the last 3 months. because of that loophole that they need to cover. So, goes back to the question. When we talk, it's important that we now understand why you do what you do. And I also say, we not talking is we leaving money on the table because we are not talking. So I think I spent some time trying to understand, trying to explain what I meant by that arrogance of the tech industry, but is in the light of active collaboration with regulators. And I'm happy to discuss with you further after this session.
Okay. You can use the other mic. I think there's another mic there. Just turn it on.
Okay. So I'm going to say that I think that the word arrogance might not be the exact word, because I do not know anybody in the tech industry who is against being regulated. I think that some of the issues is how to approach the regulators. There's no really clear line in how you're going to engage with regulators. And people in the tech industry, they want to engage regulators. They're not running away from it. They are not saying regulators should come and meet us. Nobody hates regulation because we understand that it is protecting both our businesses and our customers. And then, but sometimes with this regulation, when there is no exact understanding of the intricacies of the business and a regulation just comes up, it's actually quite shocking. And especially with financial services, I don't think there's anybody who is in the financial sector who doesn't understand the volume of fraud that goes on in the financial sector. But when you come out and then you see regulations that have no empathy for the kind of business you are doing, there is no way that that person is going to just keep quiet and say, oh, I did not engage, and that is why it is happening. And a proof that the tech industry actually wants to regulate, it wants to be involved with regulators, is the startup bill. It started from the tech industry. They organized themselves together, came together, sought out representatives, came up with, drafted a bill by themselves, and then presented it, which has now, I think, has gotten to the second house or so. So it's not like, I don't think there's anybody who is active in the tech industry who does not necessarily want to be regulated. The line of communication is not clear, and that is where the problem is. So I think that the word should probably not be arrogance, because you run a company that's sort of B2G and B2B, so it's probably easier for you to engage with this type of people. There are people who do not have that sort of privilege to be able to work into any government institution or to be able to say, hey, how can I meet X and X person from this place? And so those are some of the issues that are happening, not necessarily that people are just being arrogant and do not want to be regulated.
Yeah, I think to buttress her point, earlier today we had a little pool here where people who knew, everyone was asked if you know the people to reach out to if you have any issues, as regards tech, and nobody raised their hands, you see. So that shows that there is definitely a gap in communication, okay, between the government and the tech space. Can we take one more question?
Okay. Could you take what? Just one?
Okay, so we had this, the person in the middle row raised his hand a long time ago.
Can we take two?
Okay, let's do two.
Good afternoon. My name is Babs Opeyemi. I represent EMF Consulting Limited. I want to thank the conveners of this summit because it's a summit that is looking like avoiding the future chaos in the industry. Basically, years ago, this same issue was very prevalent in telecoms, and there had to be a sort of government engagement, and it was properly defined because NCC was handling telecoms. As of today, a lot of the tech companies, as buttressed by the last speaker, don't even know who regulates technology in Nigeria. It's NITDA on its job. Are they bringing out regulations to propel the future and guide the technology companies right? Are we having right pegs in the right holes in the regulatory industry? Or are we going to use regulations to stiffen technology? That is the big question they should be asking the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just take from what my brother just ended. My name is Emmanuel J. I'm a cybersecurity and governance expert from Ethnos IT Solutions. My question goes to the Softcom rep. He said we should plant technocrats in government spaces. Yes, I agree with that, that we plant technocrats in government spaces. But don't you think currently we have technocrats in the government spaces who frustrate ideologies? Yes, who frustrate ideologies, and how do we really address this issue? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Adewale, I think that question is for you. I think the question is for you. You say technocrats in the... Okay, you mentioned it.
Yes, I did.
Most of, the...
of course, I'm happy to defer to Mr. Adewale as well when I'm done speaking.
So let's hear from you first.
I think it's fair to say that, you know, there might be technocrats that have agendas and want to frustrate. To be honest, a solution is... This is a bit of a tough one for me, to be honest.
I don't think it should be a tough one for you. You can actually say, we actually talked about open communication and honesty, so just be honest.
Okay. I think that getting the right people in the spaces that we want to see them essentially will just entail some kind of brave conversations. I think that we would need to, well, I mean, I just speak from my place as somebody that trusts technology and the power of our voices. I think there are avenues for us to communicate how we feel. There are avenues for us to call out things that we don't want to see. But right now, I wouldn't say I have a systemic answer to that question. Does that make sense? I think right now, from the technology side of the table, the techpreneur side of the table, what we can do is still continue to engage and still continue to use our voices to say, this bill, I mean, this regulation, I don't understand it. What is happening? I would say that's what I can offer right now as a solution. But I'm happy to hear from Mr. Adewale as well.
Mr. Adewale, do you have any contribution to that? So he's asking that we said, or we advised that there should be technocrats in the government among, you know, as part of the government. But then he's saying that there might be some technocrats, you know, who might be working to frustrate the efforts of these tech firms and startups.
I mean, I don't think that's peculiar to Nigeria, and I think it's too generic because you can find that in any nation, because depending on interest. So that would be based on the individual or probably the method of selection for such technocrats. I'm not sure there's a very ready answer on how to prevent that, but I can also say maybe when we have more technocrats and more techpreneur in the boardroom where decisions are made. The conversation right now is like we are doing a lot, we're building those beautiful homes, but we are not so much concerned about the contractor that they've given to do the construction of the road that leads to our homes. So we are all doing the many building, and from the architectural landscape or blueprint of what you're building, these are very creative and beautiful homes. But what if you never have a good road that leads to the house that you're building? And that's why I keep saying about this same arrogance. And I'm particularly saying that because I wish as many people as possible will leave this place also with that, removing that endorsement. And I'm going back to the gentleman sitting over there that said something about somebody creating a business and you're not sure what regulators govern your business. Then I would say then you are not supposed to be in business in the first place. And my question with that, as frank as it might be, my good friend will be, and I'll use a very good example of what we can all relate. When a lady is extremely pretty, you also need to make yourself available for possible people that might love your beauty. And I'm sure a lot of young people here will relate. Without necessarily going precisely to you or Emmanuella, if I want your phone number, are we on a public space? My wife might be watching this. If I want your phone number, I'm not sure I will wait for a very long time. There must be someone that knows that in this room. It's my job to find it. What I'm getting at in all this is, I've seen many small businesses with creative ideas fail. Some of it with my money in there. So it's very personal to me. And the only reason why they are failing, it's not because the ideas are not good enough. It's because they fail to understand some fundamentals that govern some certain things. So if there's a place for you to say 80% of creativity, 20% of you going out to lobby to make sure that this baby does not die, then you need to leave that your beautiful home and go find out who need to do that for you. So if you continue to consider yourself, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the government are there. I'm just saying I've gotten to a place where I understand the DNA of this entity. And I'm saying I can continue to give myself that self-endorsement. But I'm going to be here again next year, 2027, 2024, and I'm going to tell you how frustrating regulators have been and how frustrating policy formations have been. And that's why I'm still here where I am right now. Removing that endorsement is leaving this place with that realization that there's work that I need to do on my part. The fact that I need to find out who are these entities that I need to talk to. That doesn't mean they will listen, but that might mean that you've moved the needle from a 4 to a 7, that the next 7, 10 organizations that will come after you will have a better conversation with them than you did. So what have you done? You've contributed to that ecosystem for the growth of that industry. It's not going to change in one day. My last comment on this also is like, don't forget also that there's a cultural and age difference also that we are dealing with. You can't take that away. The cultural part of it, you can't take that away. Yes. And without any going precisely to the DG's comments, you could hear a little bit of that in terms of some of his remarks. And that's why you said, when he said, come to me, you could see like the reaction from an average person in there to say, no, in this world, we don't come to you. You meet us, we don't come to you. Exactly. Because that's the realization of the new age, which is the brilliancy of their creativity, the ingenious invention that they brought out, the tenacity that they put into that thing, which they now call a baby. If I've produced this, I haven't labored so much, I will not come to you, you will come to me.
Sorry to cut you short. Do you think a union in the tech space will help? Just like the way we have the startup, a group of persons came together and started pushing this, Do you think such a thing will help us, in this regulatory, developing a regulatory framework with the government?
If it's structured and we're speaking with one voice, the answer to your question, immediate answer is like, yes, that will work. My fear around that is there will be silos and sub-unions based on interest. And that's also largely coming from what I still call the cultural and the age difference. Because if that union precisely doesn't represent my own interest and creativity, then I will form the sub-union that I think will push my own agenda. Okay, and it's still going back to the point that we need to do our own part. We need to clearly understand that whichever way you flip this coin, there might be some element of it that will not favor me. An active engagement will make sure that I have 40% that is good for me, and I ride on the wave of that 40% to get to the next stage. And the next question will be, I have a better leverage. There's a reason for the government to listen to me now. That is a very practical, pragmatic way to make some meaningful comments on this, to make some meaningful milestones on this. But don't get me wrong, like I said, I've gotten to that point where it's not so much of how much government can help me, but understanding this ecosystem. How do I navigate this ecosystem and actively engaging the stakeholders to make sure that this baby doesn't die? Because if it dies, the same regulator doesn't even know I was ever pregnant. And a lot of babies have actually died, all in the name of government is not helping. And that's my major message that I think I want to pass in here today. That self-endorsement, let's reduce it a little bit and let's get to that table discussing what matters to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. There's no more time for us, but thank you so much. It's been such an enlightening time, and I hope that every one of us was carried along throughout that conversation, you know, and it will make a very good basis for us to actually continue engaging the government over and over these issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the moderator and to the panelists. Let's put our hands together for the panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.